Okay, so if you can recall what you did, in that topic, that is cost estimation, you were given the units produced and the total costs. Then you are told to come up with the fixed costs. Then you get variable cost per unit. Then you get variable cost per unit. So I want to see if you are able to recall what you did. Is there someone who can give us the cost function? The cost function, how was it looking like? What was the function? It was y is equal to something. Are we able to remember? Are we able to remember where y was representing total cost? We had a figure or a symbol that was representing fixed costs and variable costs. Okay, that's good. I can see people are able to remember that. That is y is equal to a plus bx. Yes. Fixed cost. I can see somebody is also giving us another one. That is y is equal to fixed cost plus variable cost per unit multiplied by the units produced. So that is basically what we want to cover. That's basically what we want to cover. So if I can take you a little bit behind, you remember you were supposed to identify the cost driver. So the function was y equal to a plus bx, whereby a was representing fixed costs, then b was representing variable cost per unit, and then we have x, which was the total units produced, then y was now the total production cost, This x here, that is the total units produced, is also called the cost driver. It's also called the cost driver or independent variable. Independent variable is now the term that you use when you are doing your calculation in other units. But here we are now interested in this term called cost driver. It determines what the cost will be. As you can see, y is the total cost, a is fixed cost. This fixed cost, even if you've produced 0 units, it will still be incurred. And if you can recall, one of the examples of fixed cost in a production setup is where we have salaries and wages, we have rent and rates. Those are some of the costs that will be constant all through within the relevant range, of course, within the relevant range, but they are considered to be fixed costs. Then there are these variable costs which are dependent on the quantity produced, whereby if we produce 0 units, then our total variable cost will be 0. And examples of these variable costs, we said includes cost of direct material, direct labor, and any other direct expenses. any other direct expenses. We also add variable costs which were not related to manufacturing. So those are some of the variable costs which we also have to understand. So once you've known this formula here, we had several methods of calculating this cost function. We had several methods. Of course, method number one was by use of I-law method. Number two, we were using scatter graph method. We were using accounts analysis. Remember, all these methods, you are supposed to use them to get y is equal to a plus bx. We also have learning curve, which I think is now covered in the advanced level. Learning curve. We also add regression method. This regression method here is having another name, that is algebraic. Method. It is also called ordinary least square method. Least square method. Is this the first class for January to April group? Yes, this is what we are going to cover. These are one of the concepts which needs to be covered there. So today we are looking at the regression concept. That's what we are looking at. So out of all these methods here, of course, we can use scatter graph in Excel to solve the same questions concerning this concept. We can use I-law method. We can use accounts analysis. But our main interest here in this concept is by use of regression method. So these are the methods which you covered when you are actually doing your CPA or management accounting. And now that you're going to do data analytics, it deals with data analysis. How are you able to convert that data to come up with a production function using regression method? So I have explained what all these letters represent. So remember, for you to get that, you must have the values of X. You must have the values of Y. If you can recall, you are also getting X squared. You are getting X squared to some extent. Then you are also getting X, Y. That is the manual method which you are using when you are doing this concept of regression method. So once you identify those values there, you are also supposed to know some formulas here. For us to get the value of A, for us to get the value of B, so that we can come up with this function, then you are supposed to know something here. How do we get B? How do we get A? That was very, very important when you are covering this concept. That was very, very important when you are covering this concept. And remember, that formula was summation of y is equal to summation of y is equal to NA plus B summation of X. That is how you get the first equation. So let's see how we are going to do that. Let's see how we are going to do that. So you are supposed to get summation of y. Let's get that symbol from here. Of course, this is the long procedure which you are using. So we are not going to follow that long procedure. No, I'm just trying to remind you of what you are doing. Then we now simplify this process. Okay, so let me get that symbol here. Let's have that symbol. So this is what you are using. Summation of y is equal to NA plus B summation of X. Then the second equation was summation of xy is equal to A summation of X plus B summation of X squared. That is what you are using. That's the formula which you are using. So this one here is what you are now supposed to condense to come up with the value of A. So this one here was the first equation. Then you move to the second equation, you insert those values, then you get the value of A and the value of B. So today we don't want to follow that long route. Remember, for you to now get these summations, you must get the value of X, of which are just some values there. Then you have Y. Of course, it is upon you to identify which one is Y and which one is X. Remember we said that X is the cost driver. It is the units produced, and Y is now the total cost, which is dependent on the units produced. So you have to identify the cost driver first. You have to identify the cost driver first. You have to identify the cost driver first, then you get X squared, you get XY, then the summations now comes down here. Summation of X, summation of Y, summation of X squared, and summation of XY. So that one was the long procedure which you are using. Today, we don't want to go that route. What we need to know is just to identify X and identify Y in the information given to you. So let's see if we are able to identify something here before we proceed. So we are told that Farmgate Company Limited produces and sells shovels. The company provides the following data for quantities of shovels produced and the related production costs for the calendar year 2021. So we have the month given there for the year 2021. We have quantities produced in bracket units, that is the unit of measure. Then we have production costs. And my question is, assume you are given this information here, and the end product which is needed is y equal to a plus bx. I want somebody to help me identify what will be y and what will be x, because those are the two items which I need so that I can work out this data. So which one am I going to use as x? Which one am I going to use as y? No, the data was not shared. This one is something we are going to generate here. This one is something we are going to generate here. I just want us to see how it is applied. Y is equal to production costs. X is equal to units produced. Wow, that's great. And production cost is the Y, that's good. So that is what is given there. What if I change these titles? What if I change these titles to machine hours? Then I make this one here to be, I make this one here to be these are variable overheads, which are dependent on maybe something. So we want to know, we have machine hours, then we have machining costs. Which one are we going to use as X and which one are we going to use as Y? Which one are we going to use as X and which one are we going to use as Y? So X is the machine hours. X is the machine hours. Okay, that's good. I want to see if you're able to understand this. Variable cost adverts. Then we are told, this is what we are being told, that our total sales, remember all these ones here includes money. We don't have now the units which we are comparing, but we are told that our total sales is dependent on the advertising expenses. Our total sales is dependent on the advertising expenses. So Y will be the total sales. I think we are able to relate. We are able to relate what is going on here. The one that is dependent on the other will be the Y, because remember our function is saying Y is equal to A plus BX. And the final value of Y will be determined by the value of X, the units of X. So the one that is dependent on the other becomes Y. And the other one that is dependent, that this one depends on, becomes the independent variable, or X. So even if I change the titles here, what I need to know is if all of them are costs. I can even change this one here to be marketing expenses. Marketing expenses. I have marketing expenses. I have advertising expenses. And since all of them are expenses, so whoever gives me this question in exam will have to tell me that either marketing expenses is dependent on advertising expenses, or they will also give you in another format that the amount which we are going to spend in advertising these products will determine what marketing expenses will be. So already the examiner is telling us that these marketing expenses depends on advertising expenses. So my advertising expenses will be now the value of X. In all cases, it will not be units against expenses. No, in some cases, it will be units, or it will be expenses against expenses. But there's a statement which will guide you and tell you what will be X and what will be Y. So that one, I think, is now clear. That one is now clear and perfectly understood. Now, let's get back to the titles which were given here initially. Let's get back to the titles, that is production cost and quantities produced. So how are we going to solve this thing so that we get the value of Y, the value of X, then proceed with this question? So I want us to have this space here. Remember, you are not having that information. This is what I want you to have somewhere. This is what I want you to have somewhere. We want to create our own data. Then when we now get back to that question, we'll be able to answer the questions given there. So our own data will be, units, and then we have advertising. Advertising costs. We want to do this one here for 6 months. We want to do it for 6 months. So the first category of units, let's now have this, all of us. We are going to have 35. When we sell 35 or produce 35 units, we are going to spend a total of 3,420 to advertise these units. When we have 41, we are going to spend 5,430. When we have 65, we are going to spend 7,530. When I have 87, we are going to have 9640. When I have 130, those are now some of the outliers. We are going to have 9,870. Let's add the last one. We have 51. Then we are going to have 6,750. So let's have that information. Then you confirm to me if you are able to generate it from your side. Let's have that information, then see, then confirm to me that you are able to generate the same from your side. Let's see. Just 1 minute to complete that. Yes, done. That's good. So Nyakundi has done that. Let me see. 44 of us confirming that they are able to do that. Should I be having a laptop? Yes. If you are going to do data analytics, the moment you joined this class, laptop is a compulsory requirement, because even on the exam day, you will not do your exams without a laptop. Number two, CASNEB will not give you laptops. You will have to go to that place with your own laptop. So laptop is a compulsory item for this class. That is a compulsory tool for this class. And for those who have MS 2021, that's okay. If you have 2019, okay. But remember, 2019 lacks some features which are there in 2021. So if you can update yours to 2021, it will be okay. It will be okay if you can update yours to 2021. But for the exams, you are allowed to use from 2013. I think MS from 2013 onwards is good. You can use it to do the exams. But if you want to also gain some knowledge outside BDA, then please update yours to 2021. Okay, so let me see. Have you been able to insert this data into your laptop? Have you been able to insert this data into your laptops? Excel depends on the version. For my case, I have 2021 version, which I think for those who have the 2016, 2013, if you try to look for this function, XLOOKUP, you will not find it in your computer. If you find it, it's either you have 2019 version or 2021. That's XLOOKUP function. If it is not in your computer, then it means your version is those ones from 2019 going backwards. You also don't have filter function in your laptop. There's also this one, I think, text join. I doubt if you have that text join, if you have those previous versions. So let's now proceed, believing that all of us have been able to insert that information there. What do we want to do? We want to get the value of X. We want to get the value of Y. We want to get the value of A. We want to get the value of B. Of course, X is already given here. Y is already given here. Our interest is to have that function where we say Y is equal to A plus B X. So we want to get A, we want to get B, then we insert into this place and replace those letters. Step number one is we moved to data. We move to data here. And I want to say those who have this function in there, Excel. If not, then we are going to activate it together. If you move to data, and look at this right hand side here, there's something called data analysis. Do you have data analysis appearing on your screen when you move to this ribbon of data? Do you have it there? Data analysis. Do you have data analysis? Do you have data analysis when you move to data? Do you have data analysis? Yes, no, yes. So for those who don't have data analysis, I have what if analysis. No, what if analysis is a different thing. Forget about what if analysis. We are going to cover that in the next lesson. Let's focus on data analysis. Do you have that option? Do you have that option? The introduction class was done yesterday by Dr. Joshua Aura, and I think he has communicated that there are some corrections which he needs to do in the introduction topics. So that's why we are tackling this part of the data analytics. So how do we activate that? Let's move together. You are going to move to File. We are going to move to File. Are we there? Once you get to File, I have these options arranged here. For some people, you will just see it directly written here. That is, we are looking for options. We are looking for options. So for my case, I have to look for it under this key here, more. For others, they have it indicated in this list somewhere here. So we now move to this place and look for options. We move to that place and look for options. So are we all at that point? Are we all at that point? Are we all at that point? Once you get to options, you will have another list here. You'll have another list here. Where do I want to move to next? Sorry for that. I believe now my sound is okay. You can hear me from your side. Okay, that's good. So we were at this point. We move to adds in. Once you get to adds in, once you get to adds in here, you will be able to see this window there. So we go to this key here, go. So let's pick the option of go. Then it takes us to this part. It takes us to this part. For us to get data analysis under data ribbon, we have to activate one of these items here. Which one is it? Because I was able to see mine, it means this box here that we have not data or analysis tool pack. Remember, we have two of them. If you are not able to see my screen, there's a network problem from your side. You can log out, then you log in again, and then you will be able to see my screen. So for you to see what I add there or what you are not having, you have to ensure that this box here is marked. That is analysis toolpack. Remember, we have two of them. That is the analysis toolpack and this one here for VBA. No, don't go for VBA. Let's use the first one. That is analysis toolpack. Then you say, okay. Then you say, okay. Once you do that, if you now move to data, you'll be able to see it. If you now move to data, you will be able to see it there. You'll be able to see it there. Wow, so I can see somebody's already having it now. That is Julius. Isaac is having it. Yes, Alicia is also having it. Confirm if you have been able to get it now. Confirm if you have been able to get it now. That's great. So that's what you are not having. Nancy is saying that I should pardon. Okay, this is what you need to do. McKenna, this is what you're supposed to do. Move to file. There's one of the keys here that is options. I'm not able to see it, so it is under this section of more. I pick it there. It takes me to this place. What do? I look for adds in or add-ins. Then I move to this part here. Go. It takes me to this section. I mark this analysis toolpack box. Then I say, okay. That's what we did. So once you do that, you will be able to see it appearing somewhere here. That is data analysis. Okay, so having done that, we now want to do regression analysis. Mine does not give me the box for picking. It is there unless there's a problem, but are you able to share your screen, Martha? Are you able to share your screen? Okay, so once you've activated data analysis, which we now all have, we want to do regression. So what do? I move to data analysis. Then I want to trace where regression is. From this list, I've been able to see regression here. Then I say, okay. Then I say, okay. So because these ones here are already selected, let me do it. Let me undo those ones there. So the first thing is to have Y input. Our Y is the total cost, which we agreed. Our X input is the units. Remember, we are highlighting it, including the titles. Then we instruct Excels here that whatever we've highlighted, that range includes a title. Then we mark the confidence level box and make it to 95%. Of course, you can have 85 depending on what you want to do. You can have 90, but for our case, let's use 95. The next thing you are supposed to concentrate on is this part. Do you want it to be in a new worksheet or you want it to be in the same worksheet? I want mine to be in this same worksheet. So I come here and put output range. Do I want it to start from this point Do I want it to start from this one here, or do I want it to start from down somewhere there? It is upon you to decide. So let me make mine to be at this point. Then I say, okay. Then I say, okay, that is what I have now generated. So are we all having this information so that we now interpret what we have? Do we have the same information? Do we have the same information? Do we have the same information? The 45 of us should confirm that. The 45 of us should confirm that. I believe everyone has got that. So this is what is happening here. I forgot to tell you as well that in this function, y is equal to a plus bx, a, comma, b are all called coefficients. They are all called coefficients. They are all called coefficients. So we just come to this one. If you are doing statistics, of course, you'll be looking at these other factors here. R squared, those ones, we don't need to concentrate on those ones here. Our interest here as accountants, as those who are doing business data analytics paper, we are interested in the coefficients. Remember, our interest is y equal to a plus bx. So these units here, I could have replaced that by x. But I did it intentionally so that you see where you are going to get that value. Where do we have it? It is found here. It is found at this point. So the coefficient of x, the coefficient of x, the coefficient of x, where y is equal to 0, where y is equal to 0 is this one here. This is the variable cost per unit. So the value here for units, this one here, 61.88, is the variable cost per unit. So our variable cost per unit, the value of B is equal to this one here. That is our variable cost per unit. Our fixed costs, whereby even if you produced 0 units, we will still incur that. Even if you produce 100, we'll still incur that fixed cost, is equal to intercept. That is the slope of the curve. The intercept at that point, x is equal to 0. At that point, that is where the curve is crossing that's where the curve is crossing this line. This thing might be appearing to be complicated, but let me show you what I'm referring to. Let me just show you something here. Let me just show you something here. Then you see what I am referring to. Okay, let me show you that. Let me show you that. I think that one will be okay for you to understand. Okay, so let's now see what I am trying to explain. This one here, we are doing that question using scattered graph. But what I'm interested in is this one here. What was I saying? That at this point here, the intercept, at that point, x is equal to 0. Remember, x is here. X is now the units, and this one here is the y-intercept, or the total cost. So if I look at this point where my curve is crossing, or where my line here is crossing the y-axis, then that is where there is fixed cost. That is, even if I have 0 units, there is some expenses that have already been incurred here. If I have 0 units, I've already incurred some expenses. So that's why you are able to see my curve does not start from the origin. No, it starts from this point because there are some costs which have already been incurred. So that is the 2887.97. This one here is the value of, B, the variable cost per unit, that is 61.88x. They have only changed the arrangement, but you are able to see what I am referring to. So if you look at this question, already it has been formed. The equation which we are looking for, y is equal to a plus bx, is already formed here. So this one was not what we are supposed to do. Let's now get to this. I think we've now understood what I am explaining. So our equation which we are looking for is y equal to a. What is the value of a? 2887.97. Then plus b. What is the value of b? 61.887x. So that is the equation which you are supposed to form. Of course, we've seen it in the scattered graph. We've seen the same equation, only that the arrangement was different. So if you are told to get us the cost function, this is what you are told to do. You already have this, we already have that, which we are looking for, A and B. A and B. Then the examiner now goes ahead and tells you to get us now the advertising cost which will be incurred if I add 136 units. What will be my advertising cost if I add 136 units? I will simply say is equal to fixed costs, which is this, plus, close the bracket, variable cost per unit. Remember, my fixed cost will not change, so I can lock these ones here. That one is now taking us back to what you learned in Excel. This fixed cost will not change, so I can lock the whole of it. My variable cost per unit will not change. My variable cost per unit will not change. Then I multiply by the units which I will be given here, which will keep on changing. If I enter, that will be the value. So I can make them to be without any decimal place. So that is what I have. That is what I have, such that if if I have been given a unit here, let's say I have that one. So if I have 0 units, you are able to see that my fixed cost is appearing, because even if I produce nothing, it will still appear. If I have 34 units, it changes to 49.92. If I have 130 units, of course, it will not be the same, because whatever I have here is the average of all the observations. I have 10,993. If I have 54 or even 53, that will be now the total advertising cost. So that is what you are expected to do, or that's what you are supposed to know regards to regression analysis. That's what you're supposed to know as regards to regression. Of course, you will be asked some other questions to get now the variable cost from this total cost here. We've known very well that our fixed costs, our fixed cost is equal to this one here. That is the fixed cost, which we've now gotten. That's the fixed cost which we need to know. Then how do we get variable cost? How do we get variable cost from this? How do we get variable cost from this? Our variable cost is equal to total advertising cost minus fixed cost. If we do that, we'll be able to get variable cost for producing all these units, for producing all those units. So you can be asked to get this one here. Get all this. We have units, we have advertising cost, fixed and variable. That's what you need to do. The examiner can go ahead and give you the selling price per unit. Then they take you now to CVP analysis. Come up with a chart to show us the break-even point for the fixed cost, for the variable cost, for the advertising costs. Are you able to get that for us? Yes. Once you are given the selling price per unit, you will be able to get that function or that scattered chart for the all of it. So that one is a concept for another day, but let's now see if you can answer this question. Where did we get this question from? This one here is Business Data Analytics, December sitting 2022, question number 25. How are locking the constant figures? That one we covered in this part here. How do we lock the constant figures? Cell referencing, dollar referencing in advanced Excel. F4, very good, Lenny. You use F4 to lock them, or we introduce the dollar signs to lock those numbers. So I've introduced a dollar sign before J, which means I am locking column J. Then a dollar sign to lock 24, which means I'm locking row number 24. So when I lock J24, it means I don't want it to change. Even if I drag my cursor down, it will still be the same thing because I've locked that I'm referring to this specific item. So let's get back to this. We are told that Farmgate Company Limited produces and sells shovels. The company provides the following data for quantities of shovels produced at the related production cost for the calendar year 2021. The company provides the following data. So that's the information given to us. We have, that is month column, quantities produced, then production cost. Then required, part A, determine the variable cost per unit and the total variable costs using regression analysis. 6 marks. You tell me that, are you able to do this question now? Are you able to do this question now based on what we've learned? Are you able to get the variable cost per unit? Are you able to get the total variable costs using regression analysis? If yes, can I have one person sharing with us their screen, then clearly taking us through that procedure? Okay, so somebody saying that I should share the Excel. Is it possible that you just copy these figures? Because sharing will also make you take a lot of time to do it. But let me see if I can share. No, I kept you. So for somebody who had network issue and have not been able to follow that, I'll give you this video after the class. You will get this video. I will share with you this video. So let me see if I can share it. Let me see if I can share this with you. Let me see. So you will get it in the group. You will also get it in this meeting right away. That is it. That is it. That is the paper. So you can open it there. You can open it there. You can open it. I believe you've received it in this meeting. I believe you've been able to get that video. So are we there? For any person who has received that, you can now share with us your screen, then we see. You can share with us your screen. Whatever I am going to get is this. So I have to now go to data analysis, regression. Okay. Let me do away with those settings. And the examiner is specific at some point here. Include the lower and upper boundaries at 95% confidence intervals. So let's now move to this part here. Y input is this one's here. I've now identified. Remember, the first step was to identify X and Y. Then X is now this range here. Level, yes, it is labeled. Confidence level 95%. output, let it be there. I'm okay with that point. So then I just say, okay, I have my output. I have my output there. I have my output here. So I know very well that X here, I'm going to get the value of B. That is the slope of the curve or gradient of the curve. Intercept is now the fixed costs. And now that I have the fixed costs, I can extract variable costs. I can extract variable costs. That is before I get to variable, I need to have my fixed costs here. So fixed costs. How do I get these fixed costs? How do I get this fixed cost is equal to the value which I got here, that is the intercept, and I must fully log it. How do I get variable is equal to total costs minus my fixed costs. Then I enter. So once I do that, that's what I do. And then I have my total variable and fixed cost. So if I want to get that, very simple. And I have the values there. So those are the values which you are expected to get. Those are the values which you are expected to get. Of course, these two will give us a total of 279 million, which is the total cost here. So that is what you are supposed to do. That is what you are supposed to do in part A. Estimate the total production costs if the following number of units are produced. The total production costs if the following units are produced. We now have the units. Then you want to get total production costs. Units we have been given, they are this one here, that is 100,000. We have 150,000, and then we have 200,000. So how do we get total production cost is equal to fixed costs. Fixed cost will not change, plus, close the bracket, variable cost per unit, which also will not change. Then I multiply by the units produced, which I will now keep on changing as I autofill my formula downwards. That is all we were expected to do. So I've estimated the total production cost based on the function which we generated. What was the function? Y is equal to a sorry, is equal to a y is equal to a plus bx. So we can have even this one here to y is equal to a plus bx. So what is the value of b? That is what we have. That is the function which we have. So by using this function, we've been able to create these costs here. Prepare a chart plotting the predicted y versus the actual y from the regression function determined in A above. Interesting. Prepare a chart plotting the predicted y versus the actual y from the regression functions determined in A above. So the actual y is this one here, production costs. But we are able to come up with the predicted y. We are able to come up with the predicted y. How are we going to come up with the predicted y? How are we going to come up with the predicted y? What we need is these quantities to come up with the predicted and actual. So let's have this quantity, actually this data which was given to us will be of help to us. So let's have it here. Where should I place it? Let me place it somewhere here. Yes. What I'm interested in is this one here is the actual y. Then I will get predicted y. Predicted y, how do I get predicted y? Predicted, this one will be actual. Actual y, then predicted y. So predicted y, the examiner is simply telling us to use this, the variable cost per unit and the fixed cost to come up with the y now, the predicted one, which is equal to our fixed costs plus variable cost per unit. Then I multiply by the units produced. Then I multiply by the units produced. By doing that, I now have my predicted y and actual y. I have my actual y and predicted y. So they are telling me to plot this in a chart, which will give me a clear presentation. Of course, if you look at the charts, if I want to present this in a pie chart, comparing two different things, depending on the month, it will be a data set which will not make sense. So units, if I use units, I have 150 here. Sorry, I have 120, I have 120 with different values here. Again, if I use this one here as the X, it will also give me some problems because I have a similar value with different values of Y. So I cannot use production or quantities produced to come up with this data. Then the next option, which is now remaining, is for me to come up with or pick now the months. For the month of January, I will compare actual and predicted. I will compare actual and predicted. So that's what I need to do. And therefore, I now go to insert this one here. Sorry, not histogram. We can insert this one here, the bar graph. As you can see, it is already giving me what I want. But then I have 3 already picked. It has picked, as you can see, my key is telling me I have quantities produced, I have actual Y, predicted Y. and the month. So what I need is not the quantities produced. I want to compare Y, both actual and predicted. So how do I edit that? I come to this point and filter. So these quantities produced, I don't want it. I want to compare actual Y and predicted Y based on, actually, you can even do away with this one here. We can do away with the quantities produced. We can do away with the quantities produced at that point where we are selecting the data. We can do away with the quantities produced. So I just come to this part here, select data. So under select data, I want to delete quantities produced. So I remove it. Then I have that. My data is now perfect. I am comparing actual versus predicted in that format. That is what you expected to do. That is what you expected to do in that question. Of course, if you're now told to plot a chart, this one here, from the regression function determined in A above. So we've already plotted a chart. And of course, your chart now must have a title. So you indicate a title of your choice. A chart, it must relate to the information there. On monthly basis, something of that can just have a title for the chart. So by doing that, you've been able to answer all those questions. And remember this question number 25, it got 20 marks. So today, in today's lesson, I have given you 20 marks for the data analytics paper. How do we log the fixed costs? 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 The fixed cost is logged using the $sign. For example, I want to keep on using this value here. So I will say equal to this value. Where is it located? It is located in column N. So if I place my $sign before N, it means I'm locking that column. The values which I will be picking will all be from column N. So let's see what is going to happen. You see what it is picking? What if I try to do it this way? It will maintain these values. Why? Because I have locked column N. But if I want to keep, so if I reach this point, you see, it is moving down. It has now left 95.17. It is giving me an empty cell below it, but still in that column. So for me to retain that specific value, I must lock the column and the row number. So I place a $sign before 2. I place a $sign before 20, which means even if I am going to move up to the last row down there, it will keep on referring to the value in that cell because I've fully locked it. If I do it even this way, it will keep on referring to that. If I do that downwards, it will still give me that specific value. So the predicted values of y, somebody saying that they were not able to get, what we are doing is the predicted value of y is use this function. I think you can remember this function. This is the function which we are using to get predicted y. This is the function. That is the fixed cost plus variable cost per unit multiplied by x. And the value of x is here. And the value of x is here. That is what I have in my function. Are you able to see? It is the fixed cost plus variable cost per unit multiplied by units. So because of time, I will share with you this video. You go through it, you try to answer that question 25. You can even change these values and see if you've understood the concept. So thanks for your time. That marks the end of today's lesson. Have a blessed night and let's